Number 5 here. All other games are dreams while Link is in stasis. So
someone posted this theory in our Discord.
I hate it.
And
so
I'm
much.
just like,
I'm sorry.
no.
I'm not sorry.
No.
The whole trope of it was all a dream is such a cop out.
I think Link
is the worst trope.
Like, there are cases where Link can see events from the past or the future, kind of like Zelda does, because Ocarina of Time starts out with Link having a vision of the future.
But that's not the same as him just having some crazy dream about going on an adventure. So Link's Awakening is the only time the dream plot twist in Zelda was done right.
Yeah, all right, continue.
Because it wasn't Link's dream. But anyway.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to mention that for the people that are watching. Because I knew someone would comment and be like, well, in Ocarina of Time, Link sees himself fighting Ganondorf and blah, blah, blah.
That's more of a premonition than anything else, right? So, yes. The Redditor Artisan Bubblegum asks an interesting question. What if all the previous Zelda games were just dreams that Breath of the Wild Link had while he was in stasis? Here's his explanation of the theory. The theory goes on, his dreams are diverging more and more from reality as he has to fill in the gaps made by his lost memories. At the divergence of the timelines, he would be far enough from reality that there could be greater differences between his recurring dreams. When he wakes up, he doesn't remember his dreams, as most people quickly forget as they wake up, making Breath of the Wild the reality that Link's adventures are tenuously based on. So first of all, how can your dreams be based on a reality that hasn't happened yet? That doesn't make sense. But also, no. There's so many references and the past games, including things that mention or reference past games as being part of Breath of the Wild's history. It doesn't make any sense for them to all have been Link's dream or whatever. It just no. And also, again, it's a cop out. I hate it. Terrible, terrible trope. Hate that trope. Bad. Link's no dream. Good or whatever. Any other thoughts, Jesse?
No.
Terrible, terrible trope. Hate bad. That. Do you want to take number 4? Bad. Link's no dream. Good.
Yeah, I was trying to post it on our Facebook page to get a few people to come. But the next one... Did you give me this one on purpose?
You're not going to like this one.
Hyrule Warriors is now canon and explains the Breath of the Wild timeline. Redditor 𝐴855 offers a clever explanation, which I think this was... Like, a lot of people thought this when Hyrule Warriors came out. Like, oh, this explains why all the timelines are different. But then Nintendo clearly states, no, it's a spin-off, it's not canon. It's just a for fun story.
Yep.
So the use of this word shouldn't be there, but offers a clever explanation for the complicated timeline created by Breath of the Wild. Theorizing, Breath of the Wild is a direct result of the Hyrule Warriors merging every timeline. It either created a fourth timeline or simply smashed into a single timeline, one which, as of now, contains 2 games. The Redditor continues. 2? I wonder what they are. For a quick refresher, Hyrule Warriors takes place in a unified timeline created by time travel. Sia, in love with Link and jealous of Zelda, became stupid. Discord.
Did you do that on purpose?
No, Discord's being stupid.
Okay, just because it disconnected as you said Sia.
No, I
was like, is this a really clever joke?
I think what it is like whenever I click off of Discord onto something else, it gives like 30 seconds before it goes off. So maybe Discord has to be on top the whole time. Anyways, where was I?
Right.
Because she had a great power over time to begin with and was being bolstered with dark magic, she was able to merge all time together, including alternate timelines. This caused every timeline to merge into a single unified timeline. It is in the unified timeline that the game takes place in, where Zoras and Rito are separate races, where technology was once omnipresent, and where Ganon has become a manifestation of pure evil.
So anyone who thinks that Hyrule Warriors merges all the timelines hasn't beat the game.
And
hasn't beat Hyrule Warriors because... What?
I was going to say stop watching game
Stop
theorists.
watching.
Stop watching.
You know what happens at the end of Hyrule Warriors? All the people and all the places that get combined in that timeline go back to where they came from. They all go back. All these things from Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword all merge in, and then when the game ends and the story ends, they all go back to their respective homes. They don't stay converged. So if you think that Hyrule Warriors merges the timelines, finish the game. You will see that you are wrong. So I'm just putting that out there.
And there's also the fact that the creators themselves said that it wasn't canon.
Yeah.
But then they had to...
It's basically just like them needing an excuse to be able to pull all these characters from different games.
Like Cadence of Hyrule. Like, that's not canon either. And they're coming out with, supposedly, they still have the Zelda cell phone mobile game that they worked on. That's probably silently been canceled. But like, if that came out, I would expect it to also not be canon. Like, just be on its own.
But yeah, it just feels like such a trash concept. And the thing is, like, if everyone stayed at the end of the game, sure. Then I could accept it maybe more, the theory. But like, the fact is that everybody returns to their own time, and all of that's reversed. So it doesn't make any sense for people to use Hyrule Warriors as evidence of a converged timeline. And this is coming from me, who not only believes in, but coined a term for the converged timeline. I'm the proprietor of the Dragon Break theory. It's my crowning achievement of Zelda theories.
Yeah.
So take it from me, Hyrule Warriors plays no part in the convergence of the timeline. I really genuinely believe that.
Daniel has a wonderful video on his channel explain. Oh, yeah, it's on your channel now too, isn't it?
It is.
It was originally Zelda Informer.
Yeah. So when I was still working at Zelda Informer, I made this video theory about the Dragon Break, which everyone knows I talk it to death. But the thing is, I made that before Breath of the Wild came out, and I think it still rings true. There's nothing to debunk it per se.
Yeah.
The only time the only people who argue against the Dragon Break theory are like, I don't understand it, so it doesn't make sense. Like, well, it's time travel.
And
everything's messed up.
I made, after the game came out, I made a continuation of Daniel's theory. Because I was under the impression and believed that it took place long after Twilight Princess. And that has nothing to do with Wolf-Link being in the game. Everyone says, oh, well, Wolf-Link's in the game. It has to take place after Twilight Princess. And I'm like, no, that's not canon. They just put it in there for fun. That was probably their idea of having it be multiplayer. But then they took it out. Though. Yeah. And then they had the render from Twilight Princess HD, so they just put it in Breath of the Wild. The same way that they took the models of the Koroks and Wind Waker and put them in Breath of the Wild, because it was just easier.
But it looks so good in the cell shading in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and they probably did the same thing with Hyrule Castle as well. They just like took it, put it in, and made a few changes. So like it wouldn't be identical, but it would be it'd be enough to resemble. Words are hard.
There's a resemblance. It's definitely different though. But
yeah. So there's the other thing. Oh yeah. So Daniel has if you ever hear a theorist, an article, a Zelda fan, anyone talking about Breath of the Wild being a Dragon Break, Daniel is the reason that they are using that word, because it was created.
I mean, it's a term from another series.
Yeah, it was created in Elder Scrolls to explain how one of the games has multiple endings, and then the game after that has all of those endings coming back together. So, like, everything that happened, like in one ending, someone dies, and then another ending, that person doesn't die. In another ending, something's destroyed, and another ending, it's not destroyed. And somehow they all come back together in the next game to where everyone remembers everything. Like, no matter which timeline it was, it all happened, and the timelines came back together, which it's
all really weird stuff.
Alanuma has an interview where he confirms that's exactly what happens at the end of Majora's Mask, which is an example that Daniel uses. So the creator of the game says every time you go back in time, it creates a different timeline But when you finish the game and beat Majora, all of those timelines come back together, making it so that you helped everyone. Because there's side quests where you have to let the thief steal the bomb, and then there's side quests where you have to stop him. So at the end of Majora's Mask, both happened. Like there's timeline where you stopped him, there's timelines where you didn't. It all comes back together. And again, that's not a theory. Yeah. That is confirmed by the creator.
4 dungeons. Yeah, it's funny because I made that theory and someone commented and they're like, it's actually possible to do all of this in 1 3-day cycle of Majora's Mask if you're fast enough. And I'm like, no, it is not, because there's these side quests that if you do one, you cannot do the other. And also,
like the Anju
maybe
Cafe
if you're
side
fast
quest.
enough, sure, you could do all the dungeons, but that seems like a stretch. Like I just don't feel like there's enough time. But like honestly, any reasonable, like your average person playing the game is not going to do all of those dungeons and do all of those side quests in 1 3-day cycle. There's just not enough time. Nobody's going to do that. So, so I don't think that's the canon way the game goes. But,
also, in Breath of the Wild, Aonuma had an interview where actually it was a bunch of interviews, and even when announcing stuff, like with Breath of the Wild 2, he said the developers took a lot of influence from Red Dead 2. Like during E3, when we went to E3 and they had the Breath of the Wild 2 and Link's Awakening, they what was it? Was it Miyamoto or no? Aonuma was there.
Aonuma was,
and he was giving interviews saying that the developers were inspired by Red Dead Redemption 2, and then with the original Breath of the Wild, he had the same thing to where he always said the game was heavily inspired by Skyrim. And what does Skyrim have? The connection of all those timelines coming back together. And it takes place, just like Breath of the Wild, thousands of years after.
Yeah.
So it's like you literally have the exact same thing happening. You have Aonuma himself saying that yes, the timelines have converged in the past in games. You also have Skyward Sword converging, because when you go back in time, it doesn't split; it just stays in the timeline. It like loops back around to itself, which is why when you plant the tree exists in your timeline when you go back to the future, instead of it
even though it was not there.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of examples of timelines coming back together. So
also the end of Skyward Sword as well, where you kill Demise in the present, and then you go back in time and kill him again in the past.
It's like kill him twice.
Yeah, exactly. And so that shouldn't happen technically if it weren't for a timeline convergence of sorts. So, and then when you go back to the present day, everyone remembers both those things happening. It's not like it erases the other one. Because technically, if you kill Demise in the past, well, then none of the game should have happened, but it all still happened, right? So it's all wacky.
So, but I'll link Daniel's video. He goes over explaining it really well before the game comes out, and all of it still fits. And then I took it, and again, whenever I was playing Breath of the Wild, I was under the influence that it took place after Twilight Princess. But after playing, or after seeing and talking to Daniel, it's really a funny story. I want to tell it really quick. So it was when, at a time when I was paying other people to write scripts, like I would come up with a theory or an idea and ask them to like, so this is my idea. Can you write it out to make sense? And someone made this script. He originally made it for another channel that I don't think they make theories anymore, but I was friends and we worked together a lot, McIntyre Productions. And but he gave that channel to someone else. But this guy, he wanted to do the video for McIntyre, but then when the channel left McIntyre's possession and went to someone else, he didn't want to do it. And then there was the Chamber of Sages channel that he was wanting it to be put on, and then they gave me control of the Chamber of Sages channel, and then we tried to like reboot with HMK and everyone. We only had like one official podcast, but anyways, so it was a script that like was supposed to be for one channel, and then it went to what was my second channel, and then or the group channel for everyone, and then it went to my channel. And whenever I seen it, and he was like really proud of it, but it was like it gave the example of if you had a split timeline to where like he used breakfast as an example instead of using something from Zelda, which made me think he hadn't played any of the Zelda games, or he would have used an example from Zelda. But then again, breakfast is good, so why not?
Breakfast is good.
But he was like, if you have, so like there's 3 timelines. If there's one where you eat toast for breakfast, another where you eat cereal for breakfast, and another where you don't eat anything for breakfast, it wouldn't be possible for all of those to happen at the same time, because you either ate toast or you didn't. And that was his example, trying to be against the converging timeline. And like I was wanting one to be for the timeline, so I just like took out everything that he did and just like rewrote it myself, and I still ended up paying him for it. But that ended up becoming mine, and it uses a lot of examples and quotes, basically being the power or the magic or whatever happened that made the timelines converge was the goddess of time, which is mentioned Skyward Sword, Hylia, Ocarina of Time. No, not Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask has the first mention of it. So my example, I use a bunch of examples in it, but basically the person responsible for it combining was, if anyone had the power to combine timelines, it would be the person who's literally the goddess of time, that has a place to worship her called the Temple of Time. What does the Temple of Time do? Lets you travel between timelines in Ocarina of Time. And even Majora's Mask, you play the Ocarina of Time. So it's like, you have all this stuff, like the Ocarina of Time, the Pedestal of Time, the Temple of Time, the Goddess of Time. If anyone was responsible for combining the timelines, it would be her. Since in Majora's Mask, like the same thing happens, to where the timelines combine. And again, that's not a theory. That is something the creator of the game actually said. So that is 100% confirmed that all the different timelines created in Majora's Mask come back together. But
the whole toast example that you mentioned, I feel like it's just very much a not understanding of the idea of the Dragon Break theory, because the whole thing is, I mean, you can't have both not and had eaten toast. That is what a Dragon Break is that you both did and did not eat toast. Then both timelines happened and both are true. That's literally what a Dragon Break is, and it happens every time. If you play through Ocarina of Time, every time you plant a magic bean, that's a Dragon Break, because it wasn't there. And that's true. And then you went back in time and you planted it, and you go to the future, and now there's a whole plant there. But before you did that, there was no bean there. Yeah, so that's still true. And after you did it, the bean was there. Tree. Exactly. And so and the tree is also a great one. There was no tree there, and Groose is standing there thinking, this would be a good spot to plant something. You go back in time and you plant the tree there. Before you did that, Groose was standing there in the future thinking there's no tree here. And then you go back in time, or you go back to the future, I should say, and the tree is now there, it's fully grown. But before you did that, it still wasn't there. So both are still true. Both still happened. Mm-hmm. It's just that those timelines converge technically when you did that. And so it's a history rewrite, but both are still true. So Dragon Breaks, these timeline convergences, every time there's time travel in a Zelda game, They constantly happen, which is why the end of Majora's Mask, which is the example you kept using, when the credits roll, everyone has been helped. If you get 100% on the game, everyone that you helped has been helped. Even though, if you think about it, only the people you helped during that last 3-day cycle that you just played should have been helped. But the way that the credits roll, everyone that you helped has been helped because of that timeline convergence. It all is still true. So
yeah, like the wedding shouldn't take place.
Right, unless you did the Andrew and Cafe side quest as your last one before you defeated the final boss.
Yeah, but when you defeat the final boss, it still happens.
What about the giants? Did you free all 4 giants, finish all 4 dungeons on your last, 3-day cycle before you finish the final boss? Probably not. But they still all show up. It's still all there. So it's still a convergence. Anyways, I'm still ranting. We should move on to
yeah. So another thing that I want to say is, like, I think does Twilight Princess have an example of that? Because I know, like, you go back in time for that. Is it the Temple of Time? Or Temple of...
Yeah, the Temple of Time dungeon is, I think, the only instance of really any time travel in Twilight Princess.
And I had the theory that because you go through the same window that Navi goes through at the end of Ocarina of Time, and the Temple of Time is the doorway to the Temple of Light.
Yeah.
Which is in the Sacred Realm. Mm-hmm. So I had a theory that the Temple of Time, like, you enter the Temple of Time, but when you go to the actual dungeon, you're in the Temple of Light.
Which makes sense because the light medallion symbol is all over the place in that dungeon.
And then A Link Between Worlds, you're in the Sacred Realm. Doesn't it show the Chamber of Sages? Mm-hmm. So, like, you go to that same place in a different timeline in A Link Between Worlds. But those are different timelines, though. Wind Waker has, like, frozen time when you go back to the past. I don't think it reconnects.
Real time travel in Wind Waker, though.
It happens all the time in Oracle of Seasons and Ages because you're constantly changing the months or the years to do something, and then when you go back, it's still in that place. So those are also Dragon Breaks. But the only one that's confirmed Dragon Breaks, even though the others are confirmed by just playing the game and seeing something happen, like the tree being planted in Skyward Sword. To end it again, Daniel has a video that he made. You can go check it out for more details. And then I have a video expanding on it with more details from it. And it even has, I think I use a quote in it from someone who actually worked on Ocarina of Time. So, like, you have stuff from the game itself, from the creators, and then from, like, someone who actually worked on the game. So go watch it.
It's been a while since I watched that one. It's good, though.
Yeah. And, like, every single thing that I say in the video, or technically I didn't say it because we got other people to do it, but whenever everything that people are saying in the video, that, like, this happened, Hylia did this, or something, literally every single thing that we say is represented on screen for proof. So you can't go to it and be like, well, you say this, but it didn't happen. Or instead of this, this other thing happened, or you're wrong here. You can't do that because everything that's being said, it's like, there's literally the quote from the people that made the game on the screen, or quotes from the game itself on the screen. We even used the original Japanese script instead of the English script. So it's...
This is the better way to go, really.
Which is more in line directly with what Aonuma would have said. Because, like, even in Wind Waker, he said that the boat talking to Link was inspired, like, it was really important to him because it was inspired by him, like, being a new father.
Oh. So
no, it was inspired by, like, his relationship with his daughter. And, like, the Japanese version is directly written from him and very important to the game. But the English version has minor changes to it. So even though basically you get the same idea, it's still different. So, like, if you want to get directly from the source, then you have to get the Japanese text, which is
some continuity stuff
what we
too,
did.
because
it mentions A Link to the Past instead of other games.
In the North American version or the English version of the game in Wind Waker, they reference Majora's Mask in one part of dialogue,
which was wrong,
and that was wrong. In the Japanese version, basically in the English version, he says, "Oh, when the hero of time traveled to another land on a new adventure, he was separated from the elements that made him a hero, and that's why the Triforce was broken." Whereas in the Japanese version, it says that happened not when the hero of time traveled to another land, but when he was sent back in time, which, as we know, is how the game and how Ocarina of Time ends. So it actually just makes more sense, and that's the original intention of the game. So you got to pay attention to those discrepancies there.
So the English Wind Waker implies that the game takes place after Majora's Mask, where the Japanese version implies that it takes place after Ocarina of Time. But then you have interviews.
With the split timeline.
You have interviews before Wind Waker came out, which Daniel also uses in one of his videos, where Aonuma and Miyamoto are like before Hyrule Historia came out, and there were arguments about, oh, it's a split timeline. No, it's a single timeline. There's interviews where Aonuma and Miyamoto specifically state the end of Ocarina of Time creates a split to where one is left with the hero, the other doesn't. One leads to Majora's Mask, and the other leads to Wind Waker. Because the interviewer said something like, is this a sequel to Majora's Mask, or when does this take place? And they say it takes place after Ocarina of Time. And the interviewer's like, so is it after or before Majora's Mask? And then he's like, no, it's after
timeline.
Yeah, he's like, no, it's after Ocarina of Time because there's a split. And it's like direct confirmation, like 10 years before Hyrule Historia came out, before Wind Waker even came out, that there was a split timeline. Like, their intentions from the beginning was to create that split timeline. So, like, they could have made Wind Waker to where it took place after Majora's Mask and be like, well, Link left Hyrule and went to Termina, so it didn't have a hero. And, like, eventually Wind Waker happened. You could use that as an example, and it fits and makes sense, but they didn't do that. Like, they specifically made it a split timeline. So, go watch the video. I can't say enough about it. You're probably tired of me talking about it, but I love it so much. Not you, the people listening.
Oh, of course.
So we urge you to go watch his video first and then mine, because his lays out the idea of it and gives examples of it being a timeline, and then mine.
I feel like I could have done better now that I made this video again before Breath of the Wild had come out. So, I only had so much evidence to go off of, but I think everything I say still stands.
Yeah, but basically his talks about how it's a converged timeline, where mine talks about why it's a converged timeline, and like how it happened. And again, it's all, if one person could do it out of everyone, it would be the person that they're always calling the goddess of time. Like, if the other goddesses, like, who was it? Furore created Hyrule?
Was it Din sculpted the land itself? Okay,
so Din
Furore
physically
created life on the land.
Yeah, so Din created
the laws of nature.
So if Din originally would have been the one who just created Hyrule, because if she made the land or the continent or whatever, and then the others just made like the grass and trees and the life and stuff, then you would imagine the goddess of time, who has examples of like speaking to people from the edge of time, whatever that means, then like you would imagine she would be the one to converge the timeline. Because when you're playing the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and you're playing the Song of Time to go back in time, technically you're not going, but like Link doesn't have that power. He's playing the song, which presumably, because Zelda teaches it to you, and then tells you like, may the goddess of time watch over you or whatever. So when you're playing it, it's hinting that it's literally the goddess of time making you go back to the beginning, and like basically she's the one that keeps saving you from being wiped out. And then since that ends with the convergence, as Aonuma himself states, not a theory, that's confirmed fact.
Right.
And then all the other examples of it happening, like Daniel going through Skyward Sword, then Breath of the Wild, for all of them to come together, it makes sense because it's happened before. There's examples of it. Like, yeah, it's just And then the thing about the toast, like you
hate the toast
because it was just like I read it and I was like, I'm gonna have to rewrite all of this. I still have the script, and I would love to make an April Fool's video with that script because it's with just
the toast.
Yeah, because I think I paid him like $35 just for the script because I felt bad.
Okay.
Because like he really wanted
Hope he's not watching this.
He really wanted it published on like McIntyre or Chamber of Sages or mine, and I was like, well, since I own the Chamber of Sages channel now, you can just like give me the script and I'll pay you and make a video out of it. He gave it to me, and then I made the video. After I like rewrote the script, and I was like, he wanted a script on the channel so bad, but I ended up having to rewrite it. So it's like it kind of got published, but like imagine that if you're a fan of these channels and you get a chance to work on a video, but then all of your ideas are changed.
Oh.
So it's like, so I felt bad, and instead of giving him like the $20 or whatever, I ended up giving him like $35 because I just felt bad. But it ended up being not the most popular video on the channel, but one of the best, because again, I'm always urging people, just try your best to debunk it. Watch it, and then comment if anything's wrong. And no one has been able to do it. There's been some people that's tried to point out stuff, and I'm like, no, if you watch the video, at this 3 minutes and 10 seconds, it goes over that. So like it's more like people don't pay attention to parts of the video, and then when it ends, they're like, oh, he didn't say this. This disproves it. And then I'm like, no, go rewatch this part. You can see the quote where it says blah, blah, blah. So go watch the videos. I'm going to force us to move on because we've been on that for 15 minutes. The whole section will probably be a video itself.
All right.
Cover the next one. Is everyone in the chat just like, Jesse needs to shut up?
No, not at all. They're just talking Zelda theories.